Hey, this will be part of the Lessons in Critical Thinking series. In previous vlogs, I mentioned one way to fix the medical systems uh, in Canada and other places is to separate uh, the private and the public sector. Both can exist. In fact, to transition to something more human, you need to start with that step of separating them. And then doctors had to choose one or the other, specialists and whatever. But another way to fix things, and I speak as a culture repair, is to, and this is because, your medical professionals, not even just at the highest levels, but even, before they finish medical school often, is they are so obsessed, it's an addiction to them. It's a neuroses. They're so obsessed with the pursuit of status and elitism, not just a financial gain in this system. If they weren't good at school, they'd maybe do the same thing in the military. So, the escalating to upper echelons and be not necessarily good leaders or role models or culture repairers, but more like those that have power over others or that can intimidate through authority and feel safe. This is a flaw of the origins of your species that you haven't addressed yet, is overcoming your own origins, which were pretty hostile times, and you still, to this day, feel very insecure about your own safety, and you decide to, create more and more weapons, get tattoos on big muscles that look threatening and drive big trucks, and you don't do anything well, in your attempts to feel safe. And, you don't realize that it makes others feel unsafe who are faced with the same issues as you. So this is called a positive socio-cybernetic feedback loop. But positive means it's escalated out of control. It doesn't mean it's a positive thing. It's counterproductive. So it's quite sad that it's like that. You don't develop the thinking tools to, get to level 2 of your own maturation as a species. And with the world that you've created today, you should be at least at level 7. But you haven't reached level 2 as a collective that is more interconnected than it's ever been before, and that is faced with probabilities of things happening that are catastrophic and disastrous, like any day now, and most definitely within most of your lifetimes, and 95% sure your children's lifetime is it's not going to be good. It's not going to be good. You don't even need an asteroid or a super volcano. Man-made or sorry for that sexist term, but I don't want to say humankind-made, Homo communion-kind-made problems. Getting back to the medical issue is you need specialists that are separated, don't belong to the same associations, and don't let associations get too big. Anything that's too big loses quality. So what you need to do is have specialists that are the second opinion of your doctors. So doctors have to prepare a report, and it can be short sometimes because it's simple things, diagnosing simple things. But even simple things can be, the first conclusion, which is not the right one, of something more complex. So you need specialists that double check, and these are diagnostic specialists, they're problem solvers, they're investigators, and you need to include whether you've known this patient a long time or not, their family history, and often with the system of elitism and how hard it is to get a doctor, and how the elitism, as you don't realize how dumb you are with this thing, but the elitism has reached the process of schools and how you train doctors. So you don't even train new ones, and they're not more competent, the new ones, than the ones from like 25 years ago. So you're screwed. So, sorry to say this, but as a culture repair, I would recommend, because I care, that you do the separating of the private and the public, and not just doctors, but governments have to do this. Government can't, sleep with both. But also get specialists that aren't necessarily friends who go to the same barbecues as your MDs or other specialists for whatever things, and get them to look. And it can be in a confrontational way, like a serious thesis defense, because a thesis defense has to be not just a formality. It has to be, you're not sure if you're going to get through this, right? So it should be the same thing there. So that was lessons in critical thinking. Only one truck went by. I'm sitting in a campground that is unoccupied right now. And I didn't leave the campground today. I stayed because it was more quiet than usual and not raining. And I want to do more cooking with a second fire later of some food that I bought. So, for example, you're getting more medical issues come up that are linked to addictions. And your medical professionals and your government public servants are creating more addictions. I reposted on Facebook, this is what slavery looked like in that year. This is what it looks like in that year. And now slavery is creating drug addicts. The elites are kind of doing that consciously or unconsciously, whatever. They're just in pursuit of something that results in this. So they don't even realize that they're today's bad guys at levels that go beyond, people in your history books. So, for example, if somebody has, fibromyalgia or got Lyme disease or irritable bowel syndrome or chronic fatigue syndrome, a lot of these things are linked to mental illness, and a lot of the addictions are linked to mental illness. And it's very hard for doctors, even that have known people a long time, and they're sure they know their patients, but they don't understand they've operated with assumptions for decades often, so they're wrong about things. But knowing what came first, right? Something that has, let's say, irritable bowel syndrome, I would say in the majority of cases, there is a link to some form of mental illness. And then there could be an addiction in there too, right? There's a lot of concurrent disorders, and which one came first? Well, that's very important to know in a diagnosis, because you don't want to say, hey, I have this weird skin condition under my cast because I broke my arm, but you don't teach the person how not to break their arm. It's like putting a Band-Aid on a broken arm. So you don't, you treat what comes first, and then that person won't get a cast again with irritated skin under the cast because they broke their arm. Go at the root of things, and MDs, as a majority, are incapable, and they are playing the part of making people's health condition worse, and they're their patients are suffering more from the MDs, if you review everything really objectively, than not. And sadly, it's going to get worse. So one way to not make it get worse, because you're leaving your children, and you're still having children, with inadequate tools. So sometimes somebody that might make a difference, historically speaking, one of your children, and your children are not going to be baby Jesuses. They're not going to be able to do miracles in what's coming. They're going to live their life through a crash of a proto-civilization again. And there's no extraterrestrials coming to help them. So, but if you can work on some things, it would be great, because maybe one of the better doctors who gets their work happily checked and happens to be doing a good job all the time, hopefully that'll also be somebody that does not pursue the monetary paradigm or elitism, because they care about quality, not quantity, not the illusion of security, because of their own pathologies and neuroses, is they might end up treating a child during their life in a way that is good, and that child might develop the potential that they always had, likely the ability, with the right nurturing, which includes a decent doctor, come up with, some problem-solving, productive career in their life. And it's not like an invention, because hoping for a perfect piece of technology and invention is just a sign that you're still swimming in the river of denial. And I'm in there with you because you're 99.6%. I have no choice to be in there with you. I'm just swimming the other way, and I know I'm never going to make a dent. So don't have kids just to think that it'll be a baby Jesus or a miracle child who invents one piece of technology, because that again shows your intellectual laziness that got you in trouble in the first place. So it should be about a child who, and some of these children are born today, but they're in environments where the nurturing or the role models or the teachers or the parents, or the families, the communities are going to squash, that potential, and are going to get them addicted. They're going to get them to develop a personality of I'm a victim, which makes them counterproductive at a younger age, like their parents. Statistically, every generation is getting younger as one of these new generic personality types of being a victim. Oh, you don't understand. I need this. Cannabis is good for me. My life is really hard and it's helped me. Well, there are things that'll help you more. They just require more work. And unfortunately, you have no support to help you with this work. So you're not going to do it. So of course, you're going to defend this very lame excuse for. So in the old days, right, slavery was taking away somebody's humanity was, these chains and metal collars around slaves. And then it became, the tie and the suit and tie, right? And they're not more competent, these people, and they're not more in charge of their own lives than the slaves with the metal collars were. In fact, they don't even know they're slaves, and so it makes them easier to control. But then add the drug to this, and add that your highest politicians and doctors are quite happy to do this and make it seem like this is the right thing to do. Again, you don't realize how you're slaves. So slavery has evolved a lot more than, your education system, your mental health or medical system. So I'm going to have to say good luck with that, you silly homo communia.